Welcome back to Talking Devils podcast, brought to you by talkingdevils.co.uk, your number one independent Manchester United podcast. I didn't mess up the intro on the first podcast back. That's very good. That's absolutely brilliant. We are back here on our Friday podcast. This will be every Friday, 7 p.m. between now and the end of the Premier League season. So I'm obviously, if you're watching for the first time, I'm your host, Keane. And I am joined by two former Manchester United players here today. So to the right of me, I'm joined by Lee Lawrence, and right below us, I'm joined by Bill Marsh as well. Two former players of the football club. So every Friday, we're going to be talking all things United, all latest news, transfer news, and we'll also preview every single game Man United will be playing this upcoming season. But Lee, we haven't talked to each other, any of us, in weeks since the Premier League season ended, and we got a nice break of not talking about Man United for quite a while, because I think towards the end of the season there was a lot of apathy, I think, between the three of us talking about United. But first of all, how has your summer been, and how have you enjoyed, I suppose, life without United in the last few weeks?
Yeah, good evening, guys. It's great to be back on the podcast. I've kind of forgot how to do it. It's been that long now. But yeah, it's we probably all needed a well-earned break from basically talking about United after, every game, and being a little bit on the depressed side about the performances and what direction we was going to take and things like that. So, yeah, I think we've all needed a little break from it. I'm sure we're going to analyse the pre-season so far in the next few minutes or hours. And all I can say is, it looks like we are going in the right direction, and it looks like we might get a bit of joy to speaking about United again.
Yeah, it's looking promising at the moment, especially in pre-season, but we will dive into that in further detail and kind of what's been going on, style of play, certain players. We're going to look into that. We'll talk about, obviously what's in the thumbnails. What have we learned about Erik ten Hag? We're talking about Martial, Cristiano Ronaldo, Frenkie De Jong. We're gonna break it down tonight. We're literally going to talk about absolutely everything that's been going on the last kind of 2 months. But Phil, again, you're not only preparing to podcast about Man United this season, but also you've been preparing for your own football club season at the moment. And you told us that there's breaking news about your football club as well, about players joining. So you're kind of double-edged sword this summer. You've been thinking about United, but also your own football club. So it's been all systems go for you the last few weeks, has it?
It has, mate. Yeah. Obviously, trying to get myself up to speed. Not sort of done as much of pre-season as I wanted to due to a little bit of an injury, and just playing a little bit of catch up with that. But yeah, obviously we've made a marquee signing, a former Premier League player. So for that level of football, to bring in someone of that calibre is great. The lad we've brought in is Pascal Chimbonda, who's obviously played, for Tottenham Hotspur, Blackburn Rovers, Wigan Athletic, and he's played, for France international level as well. So great to have him around the camp, and he'll be great for some of the younger lads to sort of learn and sort of pick his brains about stuff. It's been a nice break, obviously, away from United, but I've chucked my United top on tonight because I didn't really get much chance to wear it last season. Every time I chucked it on, I got a bit of stick, and rightly so, because I think we were so bad last year. But obviously, as Lee just touched on there, I think this pre-season we've looked, a different team, and we're going to sort of have a chat about how, we're going to be going forward. So, yeah, looking forward to obviously seeing some of these players under Ten Hag, and I'm sure we'll dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, we're going to have a big, in-depth conversation here tonight about absolutely everything surrounding United. So, Lee, I'm going to come to you first, obviously. Erik ten Hag, we had a lot of discussion when he was in it. Well, when the rumours were happening about certain impacts and his ideology as a Manchester United, like a potential Manchester United manager. Now, he's come in. He's had his first couple of games as United manager, unbeaten since he's come in during pre-season. We've scored quite a few goals under Erik ten Hag, and looks like the football looks like to be very easy on the eye, and it's identifiable at the moment. What's impressed you in the last kind of couple of weeks about Ten Hag's demeanour as a manager, not just from, I suppose, the performances on the pitch, but from the training aspect as well?
Yeah, attitude, mate. The main thing for me, forget the performances where we have looked, we've looked good, but I think we all said it last season. The main problem we had last season as a club, from the starting 11 probably through to the backroom staff, was attitude and playing the Man United way and acting the Man United way. It was missing for me in abundance, and the main thing I've seen is Ten Hag's focus on bringing back the right kind of mentality to the club, not just on the pitch but off the pitch also, with his rules, what he's brought in. Seems like it. We've gone back to basics a little. No messing about. No prima donnas. We work as a team, and it's shown on the pitch. What I've seen of the games. How many times did we say, if you weren't playing well, run, make that 10-yard run, do the simple things well, work for your teammates. We just weren't doing it. Now, what I've seen in pre-season, it looks like we're willing to make that 10, 15-yard run past the man and overlap and work for your team. And some of the goals we've scored have been fantastic team goals, not individual goals, but team goals. You know what I mean? And for me, that's been the thing that's been missing for a number of seasons. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we can carry that into the Premier League. I don't want to get too excited. I know it is only pre-season, and it's the time to experiment and have a look at your young lads. And bear in mind, the young lads for me too, when they've come in, have looked well. You know what I mean? The lads they've not let themselves down. Who's come through. So yeah, I just thought we can keep first and foremost the right attitude going forward, and then hopefully the quality will come out. I mean, we said it all season. I'll just touch on Martial. I don't think none of us would have given him a chance this season. I know I wouldn't have.
I think Reece was the only one out of all of us who probably wouldn't give him another chance there a couple of months ago when we were discussing it.
It was never on ability though, and I think we all mentioned that it was never a thing of Anthony Martial not having the ability to be a top class striker for Man United. It was his attitude, his attitude. He looked like he didn't want to run when things weren't going well. His head had good down, but that weren't just him. That was Rashford. That was a hell of a lot of them, and that's what we all said needed to change. And for me, that in pre-season, what I've seen, it's positive. What I've seen, the vibes, what they're giving off is positive, and that's all we can ask for. And hopefully, we can bring that into, into the Premier League and let the quality. Then, obviously, football's a massive part of football's confidence. If we can have a good pre-season and carry this through to the opening of the season, and the lads are starting the season with confidence and playing the way we play, and then half the battle's won already.
Absolutely, and it's definitely I've seen a bit of difference not only in just like the training aspect. When I've seen positionally on the pitch, like the fullbacks, especially for me, is something that's really impressed me. How one of the fullbacks tucks in. I know we spoke about this briefly at the end of last season, but when let's say when Shaw's playing, Shaw tucks in, Dalot bombs forward, or vice versa. I think Diogo Dalot has really impressed me in the last couple of games. Young Malacia as well. I thought he's a bit lightweight, but in certain aspects, but from an offensive point of view, he's brilliant on the ball. You can see he gets beyond the man, something that Shaw and Telles haven't done enough last season, and it's something that I think Ten Hag will want to continue going into next season, especially if there's certain players who come in, which we will discuss later on. But yeah, I think one word I use is disciplined. The team looks disciplined, and look, if we can carry that on into next season, especially with the Premier League and Europa League, it'll be very interesting to see how this pre-season form translates into the league. Because I think with pre-season you can't make too much out of it. Because I remember watching Louis van Gaal's first pre-season, and we were smacking Real Madrid and Barcelona and Liverpool and all them in that first pre-season, and we thought we were going to win it all. But there's a lot of I think there's a big difference from what we've seen in them last couple of months under Ralph Rangnick right now. There's a big, massive difference. Phil, Lee mentioned Anthony Martial, someone who was last season was quite a disaster for him. I'm not going to put any punches on that. 1 goal for Man United and 1 goal for Seville last season. When you look at Anthony Martial coming back into the fold, and he almost looks like he has a new breath of fresh air. He almost looks like he has a new lease on life at Man United. And you look at this kind of Ten Hag style that he does have, and he likes his strikers to be involved. Do you think this might be the first manager that may get that total best out of Anthony Martial and may just maybe get that consistency out of him that we haven't seen throughout his whole United career?
To be honest, I think, as we all said last season, Martial for me was somebody who, looking at his performances, the body language, the way sort of, his sort of demeanour was, I would never have thought that he would have come into this pre-season and done what he's done. I think that's partly down to obviously Ten Hag and the way he's sort of set up and the sort of culture I think he's brought into the group in such a short space of time. But for me, I think, fair play to Martial. I was a, big critic last season. I think everyone knows on his day, he's an absolutely outstanding player. He's got all the attributes to sort of be a top player. We just didn't see it enough and on a regular basis enough. So for me, I think he's, had to probably look at himself this pre-season, had a look at where his career was heading, and he had a big sort of crossroads. Was he going to stay at Man United and try and fight for his place and do that, or was he going to go somewhere else? And maybe his career would have fizzled out because obviously, there's only, you're only going to go one way if you leave Man United, and that's down for me. So his performances have been fantastic. I think he's all-round play. He's linking the play up well. His hold-up play, his attitude, his work rate's been better than it has been. He's obviously scored 3 goals. So as a striker, I know it's only pre-season, but he looks, the real deal. And that's what we knew it was in there. It was just a case of getting that out and getting it out on a consistent basis. So, fair play to him for sort of acknowledging that he probably needed to up his levels and obviously Erik Ten Hag's came in. He's done this to not just Martial. I think there's other players there who look miles better than what they did last season, which isn't hard. But I think obviously after so much sort of that must have been a big knock in the confidence for a lot of players last season. I think he's done fantastic to get some of them players at the level they're at right now in such a short space of time. And I think if they can keep improving and keep, building together as a group, then it's going to be a lot more positive than it certainly was last year anyway.
Yeah, and I think his body language has been much better. I think, he looks like rejuvenated. He looks like he's someone who has a point to prove. I think like many of us did write him off last season, especially after that loan spell at Seville as well. Like I didn't expect him to come back and really play any games. I thought the club would have got rid of him. Now, from what we've been hearing from the media is, Erik Ten Hag, the club actually did want to get rid of him, but Erik Ten Hag wanted to keep him. So, like, Ten Hag obviously sees something in Martial's skill set that, may benefit us this season. So, hopefully, he's someone who can be an essential part of this squad, especially with a certain number 7 potentially leaving this football club. I know we'll touch on that in a moment, but with Cristiano potentially leaving, Martial is a massively important player this season.
I think just on that as well, what you just mentioned there is sometimes players, you need sort of your manager to back you, and you need that little bit of a confidence booster from your manager to say, yeah, I want you to be part of the plans. I'm going to give you opportunities. I'm willing to work with you. I think you've got what I'm after in terms of the style of player we're looking for. So I think and Martial comes across to me as that type of player where he probably needs an arm around the shoulder at times and people to sort of big him up and make him feel welcome and loved, if you like. So I think you can see that from his performances so far that he's enjoying his football again. He's playing with a smile on his face. He's obviously playing well. He's scoring goals. So long may that continue. And I think if Ten Hag can keep getting the best out of him, I'm sure there'll be other players who will follow suit as well, because he seems like the kind of manager who is, although he's really focused and he's probably a really good disciplinarian on the training ground, I think he's also got that softer side where he will make the players feel valued, and he will have them conversations to sort of keep geeing them up and getting them up for every game. So yeah, that's something I've obviously had that in myself in my own career at times where certain managers they do give you that little bit of extra confidence, and that takes your performances maybe onto the next level, which I think we've seen. So
I think too, Phil, on that, I think I agree with what you're saying, and I also think that it's bringing Ten Hag in, that type of manager bear in mind, I didn't know a massive amount before, when we started mentioning it last season. So obviously I've done a little bit of research, but I think bringing in that type of no-nonsense managers give a lot of these players the kick up the arse they needed, if I'm being honest. Because he was the friendly coach, we'd always, bear in mind, I love Ollie as a guy and as a coach too. But when we took Ranjik as a 6 month interim, I don't think no one took him serious. I don't think they took it serious because they knew he weren't going to be here after the 6 months. We could have brought, another manager in, what was a little bit softer in the approach, where I think because we brought Ten Hag in now, I think they realise it. If they don't give that bare minimum of effort while they're on that pitch, they won't get a start again. You know what I mean? They know now that they've got to run the knackers off, even if they're playing well or not, to get a start in that team. And for me, that's been evident in pre-season. And hopefully, we're back on Martial. He played him as a lone striker, 3 games, scored 3 goals. You can't ask for much more than that, can you, as a lone striker? You know what I mean? So his confidence level now must be massive.
Yeah, no, definitely, mate. 100% agree with that. And as you say there, he's sort of looked the part in that position, which none of us probably would have thought that. Obviously, looking at last season and the way he had been playing. So
I think I put it on Twitter and I said about the strikers and what was going to happen. And I said, would you rather have Bruno as a false 9 or Martial and give him another chance? And everyone was saying they'd rather Bruno as a false 9. No one was giving him a chance of coming back. So it just showed what he must have a bit of character to do what he's done. You know what I mean? Because like I say, went over to Sevilla and had a stinker there too. So to basically be out of United's plans all season, then to go on loan and not really do well on loan, to then come back, he's got to have some kind of character to do it, hasn't he?
I think sometimes as well, it's like, when a new manager comes in, it's sort of a clean slate for everyone in a way. And I think he's looked at it and thought, you know what, I'm going to give it one more shot. Obviously, Ten Hag's come out and said he really wants him to stay at the club. So that's obviously going to give him a bit of a boost. And he's obviously working hard at his game. You can see he's been, doing a lot of stuff and fair play to him. As I say, he's looking the player that we all knew that was in there. It just hadn't been, showing in previous seasons. We've seen glimpses of it over the years. He's been unplayable at times, and some of the goals he scored, world class. But we just need to see that more regular. And obviously, if he can do that, then he's going to be probably one of the mainstays in the team for me, because I think he's doing everything right at this moment in time.
If we flip that though, Keane, and I know you'll probably ask this question anyway, but it's a question it's bugging me a bit. If you flip it, would you still want to sign a striker before the pre-season's over? For me, I think we've got to do. I think we've got, especially if Ronaldo's gonna get off. I don't want to, although he's doing really well, I don't want it just to be on his shoulders. I'd rather sign a lad. It's just who would you sign? Because it's wrecking my brain due to sign.
I look at this, especially with the striker situation. If Ronaldo leaves, which I think he will, I don't see how he comes back and comes into this team straight away with no pre-season.
No.
As great as much as a physical machine Cristiano Ronaldo is, I don't see how that happens. I think also, from looking at the games, I think he can fit into a Ten Hag team. But the thing about it is, there's some key elements of a Ten Hag system I don't think Cristiano will fit into. And this is just what I've watched in the last couple of games. And that's obviously Ten Hag's body of work at Ajax. But like in that regard, like I think even from a stylistic point of view, I think an unhappy Cristiano could be very detrimental to this dressing room. I said this on Twitter earlier. Like I wanted one more year of Ronaldo, but let's say he doesn't get that move. For whatever reason, let's say Atletico Madrid now pull out, who I think Atletico Madrid are the front runners from what I've been hearing. Then they obviously need to offload a couple of players, which looks like they are going to do. So that don't be surprised that deal escalates in the next couple of weeks. But if Ronaldo stays, we have a big problem, because if Ten Hag tells him that he can't play every week, he's going to be unhappy, because the man type of character Ronaldo is, he's going to want to play every single game. He in this instance, not only with the former Martial, but also Ronaldo's age and his limitations, he's not going to be able to do that every week. So I think it's very important. I think we probably do offload him this summer, and we do bring in another striker. Now, as Lee mentioned, who do you bring in? Because one key element of Martial's career at United has been, does he deal well with competition? And we've seen with Zlatan, Lukaku, and consequently Cavani and Ronaldo coming in, that it kind of stumbled him a bit. Even when Alexis Sanchez came in as well, Martial was on brilliant form along with Rashford when they were both had each other in a bit of competition. They were both scoring each week, and we seen them two kind of bounce off each other. But that's kind of the catch-22 we have if Ronaldo does go. Do we rely on Bruno to deputise up front if Martial gets injured? Do we put Rashford up top? Like, if you look at it with natural strikers at the club, Alanga can play up front, but like he's not great up there, if we be honest. Then you're looking at Charlie McNeil. That's literally where we are. Like, if Ronaldo...
I think that's the only real striker we've got on top of Martial is McNeil, isn't it? I can't think of any who's a natural striker at the club at the minute.
Yeah. That's the thing. And I think that's where, like, I think recruitment, I know we were looking at young Ibowie, I think that, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, from Derby. And now, consequently, he's gone to Palace now. And he played against us the other day. Like, do United go in and look at Jonathan David? I know we were linked to him just literally last night. Reports came out that we have a free run at Jonathan David, but Jonathan David will want to start every week. I don't see how you can have him and Martial there. I think this is the problem where if Cristiano leaves, what type of striker do we bring in? Do we bring in someone who, if Martial doesn't cut the mustard, they're ready to jump in next season? Are they happy to be challenging for that number 9 spot? Or do they want to be guaranteed it? And I think that's where this late in the window, this Ronaldo situation is giving Ten Hag a big problem.
Yeah.
In terms of striker issue.
What's showing me too is the people who's getting chucked into the hat when they mention Ronaldo going is the likes of Anthony and Depay coming back. But for me, they're not main strikers. You know what I mean? For me, they're more wide men. So that's what's confusing me. We seem to be getting linked with a lot of attacking wide men, but not many strikers at the moment.
And this is where I look at it. Like, you look at, I know I'm going to touch on Martinez and Eriksen and all them. Like, does Ten Hag maybe use Bruno as that false 9 if Ronaldo does leave, and then like Eriksen and Donny van de Beek get used in midfield as that number 10, and they kind of go with that hybrid kind of option, where they interchange positions. Like, to be fair, Rashford and Sancho can also play as a striker now, albeit they won't be a classic number 9, but they can play that role. So I think that's where I think United need to sort out Ronaldo's future like as soon as possible, because if they don't, we're going to be left with a bit of a problem. Whether it's Ronaldo being unhappy, and that's going to cause dressing room unrest. Whatever way, like, don't sugarcoat it. I think that this will cause unrest if he stays, if he doesn't get that move. I think if you look at the flip side of it, if he stays and you look at the form of Martial, what decision does Ten Hag make? Does he keep Martial in the team but also drops, let's say, an informed Sancho or Rashford? Like, either way, like, I think there's like either side of the coin, there's going to be some sort of disruption sorted out, like, though happening. Like, Ten Hag, can he adapt his system that he can play most of these players? I think this is where these are big questions are going to be asked. And I think George Mendes throwing the spanner into works leaking to the media regarding Ronaldo's future. It's really after throwing the spanner into the works in terms of how this is going to work this season.
Yeah, I think obviously the key is to Ronaldo needs to just decide what he's doing, and that needs to be resolved sooner rather than later, because otherwise, the longer that drags on, as you say, it's just going to keep causing problems, and then he's got a headache of, how do I keep him happy to sort of, avoid any unrest in the dressing room, and then does he change his style, and it's going to be, difficult. But then who is there out there who would come in as a proper number 9, and be somebody who we could sort of hang our hat on to sort of, get us 15, 20 goals. I'm not sure there's many out there, if any, at the moment, who I'd be like, I'd be, really excited to see them come in. It's going to be a difficult one. As you say, Martial's done fantastic in pre-season, and we hoping he can be, the player this season that we all know he can be. But if that doesn't pan out, you're going to be looking at likes of maybe playing Rashford down the middle, or, having to sort of, chop and change to try and find a system that'll suit the personnel that we've got available.
Yeah, that's where Ten Hag, I think, to be fair, he is that flexible manager that he doesn't rely just on the 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3. He's often went 3 at the back as well, and gone with like a 3-4-3 or a 3-5-2. So, like, he is flexible. But I think I think our best system this season is going to be the 4-2-3-1 because we don't have a natural defensive midfielder. Even if we bring in Frenkie De Jong, I think the 4-2-3-1 will still be used. I think United will still use a double pivot this season. I think that will definitely happen this season. But before we touch on transfers, because I know everyone who's watching this right now loves transfers. Everyone loves to talk about transfers. It's everyone's favorite thing apart from football. Like, I think people like transfers more than they actually like football sometimes, judging by Twitter anyway. But before we touch on the Frenkie De Jong and Eriksen and Martinez and Malacia and players like that, I just want to come to both of you on the youngsters. Iqbal, Savage, Hannibal, these couple of players, Leighton Laird, have all come in this pre-season. Most of them, to be fair, actually have quite impressed. And Ten Hag actually mentioned today, especially Hannibal Mejbri, in terms of impressing them in training and in the last game as well. It looks like he's primed to start tomorrow, against Villa. For you, I'll go to you firstly. When you look at the performances of the younger players, in this pre-season, how impressed have you been? Do you think these young players can maybe get a lot of games next season, considering there's 5 subs and Europa League as well next season?
All right, mate. Sorry, I only caught half that question because my family's literally just walked through my room where I've just been. But what was the question again? So with the young lads, have I been impressed? And do you think they'll get a game? Was that the gist of what I got then, mate?
Yeah. So basically, like the likes of Savage, Hannibal, Iqbal, players like that have played quite well in this pre-season, and they've got a lot of plaudits, from fans and ex-pros alike. Obviously, being a former U player yourself, how have you looked at these younger players' performances, and do you think can these players make a stamp and maybe disrupt some of these first team established players?
Yeah, the lads who you've mentioned there, for me, they've stepped up to the plate and they've really showed themselves well when they've got onto the pitch. I was very surprised with Charlie Savage and Zidane Iqbal both playing together in central midfield, and they didn't look out of place whatsoever. All the youth lads what's come through, to me they've looked like they've slotted in well. I think we're getting a little bit of depth in our squad now, especially with the lads who we've brought in and the young lads which are coming up. Man United are known for bringing youth lads through. We always have been, for as long as I can remember. And this current crop of young lads, what we've got, they do look the part. And if we don't make the signings of De Jong and people like that, which, to be honest, I know we're going to get onto that. For me, I'd let that one go anyway. If I'm being honest now, the excitement's gone out of that for me now. So I'd like to see the young lads being, given a bit of an opportunity. I depend. I'm being realistic. I don't know what other people are thinking. For me, our aim still, we mentioned it at the beginning of at the end of last season, is to get top 4. I'm still not looking at this season trying to win the Premier League or whatever with the squad that we've got. So yeah, I think with the current crop we've got of young lads, it'd be lovely to see them get a chance. And I think with what they've shown in pre-season so far, they warrant it. They warrant giving a chance. So yeah, it's great to see, and getting a bit of depth in the squad, which we've not had for a long time, again is a plus for me.
And do you think, Phil, especially with the midfield, obviously, Lee briefly touched on in terms of the Frenkie De Jong deals, obviously there's a bit of uncertainty as to when, if and when that'll happen. Do you think Iqbal and Savage may give Erik Ten Hag that alternative? Let's say if we don't get De Jong off the line, and let's say for whatever reason we don't get an alternative to him in, do you think Iqbal and Savage can maybe show Erik Ten Hag he does have that alternative? Because I think a lot of us, we don't knock Fred and McTominay for their efforts at all, but I think if you look at overall for this system, I don't think them two midfielders will cut it next season in terms of playing that pivot if we want to make progress.
Yeah, no, I think Ten Hag has obviously been impressed with him in pre-season, and from what I've seen of him, certainly they've looked not out of place, as Lee said. So yeah, it's good to have that bit of competition, and I think that's what you're going to get from these young lads as you get with young players. They're always going to give you that 100% work rate. Obviously, they're going to have, be rough around the edges and stuff. But I think for me, what I've seen, I think they're going to be great players. Whether they're ready to step in right now is going to be, the jury's probably still out with that. But I think if they do get opportunities this season to maybe play some of the Europa League games or, the Carabao Cup games, or if there's injuries and stuff. I'm sure if they're doing it in training and Ten Hag feels like they're good enough, then they'll get the chances. So it's just about then, obviously, can they take them opportunities? They've been training with all these players day in, day out now, so that'll bring them on tenfold. And for me, as a young player, you want to be in and around that first team as much as you can, learning from some of these top players and, trying to just obviously improve your game. And I think, they've got the right attitude to sort of do that. So hopefully they do get the opportunities, and we've got some young talent that can be here for, a long time, who can be the future of the club. So that's just obviously my thoughts, and it'll obviously, time will tell whether that'll be the sort of way it goes. But for me, I've seen a lot of good things from him, and I'm looking forward to seeing him get a couple of opportunities.
I think one thing that's impressed me, I knew Iqbal was very good in terms of taking the ball off the centre halves, just from what I've seen the 23s. But I think him and Savage, how composed they are, like in terms of they're brave to take the ball off the back four, is one thing I noticed. Fred is very good at as well in terms of dropping in and starting that first phase. But McTominay doesn't do that. Like, he always hides behind the number 10 almost, and then waits to get the ball in the second phase. But one thing I liked about Savage and Iqbal is they drop in. They, like Carrick used to do, in terms of you're dropping into that role, picking up the ball and starting to play. That's something I've noticed, that they've done very well. And it's obviously, I think that's something Frenkie De Jong will be doing when he does come. But that's something I think they definitely give us something different to what we do already have. I know Donny van de Beek can play in there, but I haven't been too impressed with this pre-season, I'm not going to lie. I've seen some of the movements have been okay, but I think he's just a bit too timid for this football club. That's just my honest opinion. People in the comments now might absolutely destroy me for that, but I think Donny van de Beek is a bit too timid to play not only at United but in the Premier League at top level. And look, he could prove me wrong, but that's just my opinion. But I look at them two and I say, like, they're good ball winners. They're brave, and if you look at the depth we had last season, when Pogba and Matic were out, we didn't have two midfielders who can come up, go to the centre halves and take the ball. These two can, and I think especially in Europa League games, they can definitely play in the group stage and the home games. I think definitely them two can play. And like James Garner as well, I know Reece just mentioned him in the comments, like, he's been injured this pre-season. I think he will be playing tomorrow. So, like, can Jimmy Garner come in and impress like them two have? I think he can. Out of all of them, that's the one of the midfielders I really wanted to see this pre-season. And hopefully, look, he gets some minutes tomorrow, gets some minutes against Atletico Madrid, and then against Vallecano next week as well. So, like, that's where I think, for me, that there's a lot of question marks, these younger players, and they're ticking the boxes as this preseason is getting on. So look, long may that continue, and let's hope they can push some of these older players in the squad, and look, they can push them, and the older players then are either on their toes, or, like, as we once heard, if you're good enough, you're old enough. So, like, look, let's hope that either case works. But we're going to get on to transfers now. I've just been talking to many people about transfers all summer, about Frenkie De Jong. I've talked about other deals, just like interacting on social media. But Lee, I probably know what your answer is going to be before I even come to you on the Frenkie De Jong kind of saga. But, like, obviously he's a quality footballer. And he, like, if we look at Eric, like, we've been talking about Erik Ten Hag's style in terms of how he wants to play, retain possession, and to obviously be very good going forward and sustain attacks. How key do you think he's going to be to Man United's success this season if he does come in, considering Pogba is gone? And we, like, regardless of what people say about Pogba's attitude or what his commitment at times, one thing you can't mistake about Paul Pogba is he was a quality midfielder who was very good in the ball, and was very well liked amongst the dressing room at the football club, despite what fan opinion may be regarding him. Do you think Frenkie De Jong needs to come in? Because if you look at any other midfielder in the world, there's very little players who can replace Paul Pogba's quality on the football pitch.
Look, Frenkie De Jong, we all know, is a top quality central midfield player, and he would be a great addition to any squad in the world. including Man United, including us. You know, his qualities are there for all to be seen. When I see on social media, and I don't know how true it is or not, but I think it was on Sky Sports News that he doesn't want to come to Manchester, doesn't want to be here, he doesn't like the city, he doesn't like the way that the club's run. For me, I don't want him. I don't want a player who doesn't want to be here. I want a player who's fully committed to the badge, fully committed to the club. For me, the days of people being here what don't want to be here, they're just here picking up a wage packet, needs to go. We need players who are fully committed to Man United, and seeing what's being said at the moment all over social media. Again, I don't know how true it is, but I don't want any player, no matter how good they are in the world at Man United, if they don't want to be here. I'd rather give the young lads a go, or even go for proven Premier League players. What's been there and done it. You know, there's loads of names. What's been thrown out over pre-season, but the likes of Neves, we know he's been mentioned. We know he's a proven Premier League player. There's other options. Jimmy Garner, when he comes back, let's have a look at him. For me, I would move on from the deal now. I think it's gone on way too long. We could potentially be missing out on quality signings because we keep pursuing something what's not there. So yeah, for me, ideally, drop it and let's move on, and rather let's give the young lads a chance, or let's pursue something before the window's out, which is more realistic. Probably costs a lot less money.
Yeah, and I look at some of the sources who are leaking that, and I'm like, right, some of these people are like, some are reliable, and some things are coming out, and some people, I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to name drop anybody, but people probably know who I'm talking about in terms of like people who are leaking stuff. They can't, I wouldn't trust them to help me across the road, to be honest. I'm just going to be honest about that. But I think for Frenkie De Jong, he has let Ten Hag know he's willing to come. But like the big issue with this Frenkie De Jong deal is that 17 million that Barcelona are just refusing to pay him, even though like they're leveraging money and they're bringing in all these players. But the thing about this Frenkie De Jong deal, it's very complex. But the fee's been agreed. Personal terms are not going to be a problem. They're never a problem when it comes to Man United. I don't care who you are in the world, right? 17 million is a lot of money. That's a lot of money that he's quite rightfully owed. And he needs to get that bag. I'll be honest. If you're owed 17 million, you're going to stand firm and get that money. Especially when they're looking at bringing 60 million Rafinha, 50 million Lewandowski, Christensen coming in on a free and a big signing on fee. They're looking to bring in Azpilicueta as well. They're looking to bring in all these players. But they're desperate to get De Jong off the books. But De Jong is standing firm getting that money he's owed. And I would be too. Like, to be fair, it's a lot of money. And he's playing for Barcelona, he's owed them wages. This is Barcelona's doing. And when you look at Barcelona trying to get Chelsea to come into the play, to try to come into the fold, that's to try to push United to pay the 17 million. Like, Barcelona want us to pay that money. Simple as. They want us to pay that 17 million deferred wages. They want us to take some ownership of that. But no, you owe them that money. You give them that money. It's simple as that. Like, like if I owe money to the bank, let's say, the bank aren't going to look for my mother or father to pay it or my friend to pay it. They're going to look for me to pay it.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? So, like, this situation of Frenkie De Jong, I think, as a fan, I look in my situation. I'm like, yeah, look, I'm very frustrated with the deal. It's taking too much time. The Premier League season is starting in 2 weeks, and ideally we need him in there. We've Liverpool in their third game. Ideally, you'd want Frenkie De Jong having at least 2 games before we go into like arguably our biggest rival at home. You'd want Frenkie De Jong in your midfield, but Barcelona are the problem here. And you look at all their new signings, like Kelly said it, like she doesn't know why we haven't moved on. But yeah, it's a strange situation. I think compromise will be met.
You got to flip it too, Keane. Imagine, I know if it was me as a footballer or Phil or anybody like that, and we was playing, and we took a hit for our team because they was in financial difficulties the year before, and then that team tried to offload you and then not pay what they owe you. For me, I don't want to step foot on that pitch again for that club. That club to me is dead. Do you know what I mean? So even if he does get the 70 million and stays, surely he's not going to be happy at a club what's trying to do the dirty on him too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I think he's not. I don't think he stays. I'll be honest. I don't think he stays. I think it's just the fact that he's owed that money, and Barcelona are legally obligated to pay that money, and that's where this sticking point in this deal is. But as I said, I reckon what's going to happen with this is we're going to see a compromise being met, where Barcelona will give half, United will end up giving maybe 8-9 million towards it, maybe as his signing on fee, in terms of the contract. But again, it's strange. I've never seen a football club like whatever how United are run with the Glazers, right? The Glazers are absolute, like worst owners I've ever seen in English football history. But the way Barcelona run their football club at the moment, they're not going to exist in a couple of years' time, 100%. But anyway, apart from the financial side of Frenkie De Jong's deal, because look, I hate talking about numbers and fees and stuff. Phil, he's someone who has a wealth of experience, obviously throughout European football, whether it's that's Ajax or Barcelona. We've seen Donny come in, and Donny hasn't, I suppose, played that well in the chances that he's got. Not only with us, but with Everton as well. Do you think, obviously, Donny just went straight from Ajax to United, and that's all he knew. Do you think of Frenkie De Jong, that he's gone from Ajax to Barcelona to United, let's say this does happen, do you think that experience in Spain will do him a bit better than what Donny came from, considering Donny went straight from Ajax to United?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Frenkie De Jong, from a football point of view, is a fantastic player. I think, we've all seen his qualities, and, he's been part of a very successful Barcelona team for a number of years. I think the Spanish game is obviously better than the Dutch league. I think, although the Spanish game's not as physical as what it is over in England, I think he is quite robust, and I think he is quite a good player in terms of, he's got that little bit of a physical element to his game, even though he's quite slight. I think Van der Beek has sort of struggled with that aspect. I think, obviously, when I've seen him in certain games, I think he's sort of gone into his shell a little bit at times. He's not wanted to get on the ball as much as probably what he did when he was playing in the Dutch league at Ajax. I know it's obviously different styles and stuff, but for me, I think you've got to want to do the hard yards. You've got to want to be brave, get on the ball, especially playing for such a big club like Man United. That's what the expectation is, and I think for me, he's fallen short on that with the opportunities that he's been given. Not to say that I think his time's completely over at Man United, but I think, for me, with the signing of Eriksen and Martinez as well now, he could be, further down the pecking order with the options we've got in them positions. From what I've seen of him in pre-season, I think he's done okay, but I've not really seen enough for me to want to, be saying he's the, starting 11 shirt. He had a good hand in that goal for Rashford. There's some great player there, but other than that, I've not really seen enough for me to sort of want to fight his corner and give him that chance. So again, it's still early days, but for me, I don't think he's sort of going to be in that sort of thinking of being a starter for United at this moment in time. From what I've seen. There's still games left in pre-season, which may change my opinion on that. But from what I've seen so far, I've not sort of, it's not got the juices flowing for me. So we'll just have to wait and see on that one. In terms of De Jong, I think if he came in, he would be a person who would come in and obviously want to start. He's coming in, with a wealth of experience, and I think he is a world-class player. But obviously, there's all the stuff going on behind the scenes with the money, and so. For me, if that is going to keep dragging out and dragging on, as Lee said before, there's other options that we could maybe, go and look into, like the Neves, Tielemans, people that I think have been mentioned. So, yeah, just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think look at Yuri Tielemans been available for 25 million now. To be fair, Man United come in. I think that 25 million goes up to 45 million. Just that's Leicester will try to pull our pants down. I think we've learned from the previous transfer dealings we've had with him. I don't think United want to go back there. For any footballer. But yeah, I completely get what you're saying in terms of like how long it's taken. United kind of need to get this done quickly. It's just whether a compromise can be met over this deferred wages issue, which hopefully, for our point of view, it can. But I'm just going to get quick takes from me just with regards to Martinez, Eriksen and Malacia as signings. Obviously, they've come in. Looks like Eriksen and Martinez will effectively make their debuts against Atletico Madrid and Real Vallecano next week. But I'll come to you firstly as a left back. Looking at Malacia, what have you liked about him since he's kind of come in these first couple of games?
Young, ambitious, strong, good on the ball. Put a lovely crossing to Dalot for that goal. Inexperienced, but he's going to push Luke Shaw, which I think is very, very important, because I still think Luke Shaw on his day, and it's hard to get him on his day, but when we brought Tellers in, we all seen what improvement happened with Luke Shaw. I think bringing a young, hungry left back in now as competition, they can push each other to see who's going to get that starting number 3 and healthy competition again. I think he's going to. I'm not sure. I've not seen enough of him, if I'm being honest, to say whether I think he's going to be better than Luke Shaw or not, or if he's going to start. But when we get in that competition within our squad, it's going to push the lads a lot harder. And you bring in any decent player in any position, and automatically the level of the lads what I've already there are going to up, because they're going to realise that if I don't start doing what I'm supposed to do, this lad's going to take my place. So for me, I mentioned it umpteen times last season about the fullbacks not being good enough. I think Tellez is going to struggle like mad now, if I'm being honest. I don't think he gets a start whatsoever. And I think it'll be between Malacia and Luke Shaw at left back, and may the best man win. I'd just like to touch on Dalot, though, if I'm being honest, because I ripped him to death last year. What I've seen in pre-season, he looks like a brand new player. Even playing Sancho on the right, which I don't know why it took us so long to realise that Sancho's a right winger.
Yeah.
Putting him in his right place, and you've seen a relationship develop between Dalot and Sancho, which is flourished in pre-season, and it doesn't take a scientist to realise if you play a player in his natural position and they can form a decent relationship between fullback and winger, that it can bring them both on, and that's look like they look like they're creating a lovely relationship there, and they look like they're bringing each other on. So I'm going to take a bit of back through Dalot, because I want to add him as a squad player last season. What I've seen of him and what I've seen of him in pre-season, he's turned himself around. So fair play to him.
Yeah, he looks like he has come on. Looks like Ten Hag's coach and has brought him on. But again, I think very interesting to see how he copes with the Premier League. I was going to bring up Reese's comment here. Says, ripped him to death. You tore Dalot a verbal, I'm not going to say that word, live on air. Lee, it was brilliant and worked. Yeah, it looks like he must have been watching the podcast last season.
I think you touched on it, Keane, a bit earlier in the podcast, though, when you mentioned about when you've watched the fullbacks and you said, one looks like when one bombs on, one tucks in. And
yeah,
none of us could get our head around it last season. It's just basic defending, which we learned from being under 9s, under 10s. To watch a club of Man United stature last season not be able to do the basics was beyond belief for me. And it looks like Ten Hag's come in now and, like I say, implementing the fundamentals of defenders and midfielders. And Luke's what happened with Luke's so much more solid. I mean, we've scored, is it 11 goals, conceded 2? Yeah. You know what I mean? From the first couple of games onward last season, we couldn't score a goal. You know what I mean? And conceding goals, we conceded so many unnecessary, stupid goals. It was unreal. By just bringing a coach in who's probably coaching defenders how to defend and teaching them the basics as a back four, it looks like it's working. Yeah, and look, hopefully, like again with the higher pace of Premier League games, this organisation can stick and it stays, and we see more relationships being developed between defence, midfield, and attack, and the goalkeeper as well, because I think the goalkeeper situation David De Gea, I know I had a lot of doubts about him. I still do. I'm interested to see how he can adapt to a Ten Hag
style goalkeeping position. Look, it's something we definitely will discuss later on in pre-season.
Can we give a Baye a mention, because I've been saying it all last
season? We can, yeah.
If we get a bit,
I'm going to leave you to that, Lee. I'm going to leave you to that, Lee. Sing his praises.
Listen, he's our attacking midfielder now, and don't need to worry about him being a centre back. We've got another attacking midfielder.
Are we dropping? What you're saying? You're dropping Bruno, putting Eric Bailly in number 10, are you?
Absolute playmaker.
Do you know what? A friend of mine said to me last week, he makes football look so difficult but so easy at the same time.
Yeah.
I think that's the perfect description of Eric Bailly.
He's looked, for me, he's looked really well. When he's played, he's looked composed. And I've said it many a time on the podcast that if we can get him fit and we can coach the bad habits out of him, then I think he could be an absolute quality defender for us. It's just not happened for him yet. Hopefully, if he pushes on and keeps himself fit, he might get a few starts under Ten Hag, especially with this pre-season he's had. But then again, I can touch on Maguire getting booed the other day, and what I've watched of Maguire in pre-season, he's looked 100 times.
He's looked decent. He's looked decent.
Yeah. I just couldn't get my head around that.
Maguire's looked good on the ball. I think one thing Ten Hag would like about Maguire is his distribution, and the fact his ability to switch play is quite good. Interestingly, Maguire's been playing as the right side of centre half, which is something. If you remember, lads, I was shouting for last season. I was like, "Oh, you're playing him on the left, play him on the right." Played there for Leicester, and it looks like now he is playing there and he is doing well. But again, I want to see Maguire can bring this into next season, and obviously positionally do well. I think ideally the centre half partnership will be Maguire and Martinez next season. I think that's what we're going to see. I think Rafa Varane will be in and out of the team, in terms of his injuries. I think Lindelof will probably be that kind of second choice by Martinez. Well, I think Harry Maguire will be first choice centre half this season. And I'm not saying that because he's the captain of the football club. I'm saying that because of his skill set in terms of his ability to be our ball playing defender. Between him and Lindelof, I'd probably say Maguire is probably the best ball playing defender at the football club at the moment. And that's obviously, we haven't seen Martinez really get a go yet. To be for him to be in the conversation, but I think on the ball, Maguire is the best centre half. Now, obviously, the other aspects of defending, such as obviously positional play, holding the line, stuff like that. It'd be interesting to see with this high line, with this press that we're playing, can Maguire, not be caught in transition? I think Ten Hag's way of approaching this is by wanting to bring in Eriksen, bring in De Jong. It looks like his best form of defense is going to be attack next season. I think that's what Ten Hag is looking at, keeping control in games and pinning teams back by keeping possession of the football. I think that's the way Ten Hag will want to implement this. And I think if he does get De Jong in, and let's say he plays De Jong and Fred in midfield, I think that would be a good blend, a good balance in midfield, because Fred can do the breakup play and De Jong can obviously they'll be that playmaker in there, they'll connect play. And I think one thing I have to mention as well, I think Bruno Fernandes has been quite good in pre-season. He's kept things simple, but when he needs to play that pass when it's on, he's playing it. He's playing it very snappily as well. So I think with Harry Maguire, he's gonna, once he gets a run of games and plays himself to a bit of form, we'll see that Maguire we've seen in 2021.
I think Ellie just hit the nail on the head there. Before we brought Martinez in and if Baye was injured, we didn't have no one with any pace at the back. So no matter who we played, we had Varane or Maguire, Lindelof, Maguire. That ball got caught over the top. We had no recovery pace. Now hopefully with Martinez or Baye can keep fit and we can play one of them alongside the lads that we've already got. We've got half a chance of recovering positions what we wanted to recover last season. Yeah,
I think that's where the questions are there, but I think Martinez and Baye, if you can keep them in and around there, I think Ten Hag just needs to get the blend right. I think Maguire and Varane did play quite well last season at times, and we didn't lose many games when they were centre half together. But can Varane stay fit? Can he cope with this intensity of a Ten Hag system? Can Harry Maguire, get back to what he was? Previously. So it'd be interesting to see. I'm going to come to Wayne's comment here, Phil. I'm going to bring that to you here. It says, "Evening, lads. I wrote something on the website this week, and still I wonder, is Maguire at risk? If being named captain was a political decision, didn't Jose keep Wayne Rooney as club captain? Do you think, let's say if Maguire does, his form, let's say, is the same as last season, do you think it may be a case where Ten Hag is trying to keep the dressing room together and he may eventually phase Maguire out?"
I think obviously if he plays the way he did last season, then something's obviously got to change. I don't think it was all down to him, the performance levels, but I do feel as though now when we have got Martinez in there, who's naturally a lot quicker, looks a little bit more tenacious and sort of that different element to the game than what Maguire's got. I think that is a nice blend, and I think that will help him a lot more. Obviously, being on the right-hand side, as you touched on there, when he was at Leicester, I think that'll suit him more. Probably feels a little bit more comfortable in that position. So, yeah, and as you say, we've seen him in pre-season. He's looked quite good. And for me, I agree. I think he's probably our best ball-playing defender. Just, last season, confidence was shot, as a lot of players were, with just the sort of inconsistencies of performances and the lack of sort of cohesion within the group. But obviously pre-season we've seen a complete turnaround with that. I think everybody looks to be on the same, singing off the same hymn sheet. I think everyone looks a little bit more rejuvenated. They've got a spring in the step. They look a lot more happier, and performance levels have been far superior to what they was last season. Yeah, it's only pre-season and we don't want to get too carried away, but the signs are looking a lot more positive. And we're obviously bringing in new additions to the squad as well to sort of keep that competition and improve the depth of the squad, which I think was lacking last season in certain parts of the season, where we were sort of scratching around for, trying to fit square pegs in round holes and stuff. So I think Maguire's going to be, a big player this season for us. If we can get him to the levels that we've seen, in 21, then I think, we've got a good sort of base there to build from. And with the players that we've signed and, the form Marshall's shown in pre-season, it's looking good. But we've just got to keep them levels going, and we've got to keep improving. And I think that's, all we can do at this moment in time.
I don't think no one's safe. I'll be honest with Ten Hag. I don't think there's not one player on that team or in that squad now where if they're having a run of bad games that they'll carry on and keep the place. I think Ten Hag's the kind of manager that if you're not performing consistently, he'll try something else, which for me is only a good thing, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's the way it should be as well, because I think you can get into, like last year, we touched on it a lot of times, like, some of these players, they fell into that comfort zone where they just thought they was undroppable and, performance levels were so poor, but there was no one else really to come in and take the place, or, they just felt like they were a guaranteed start every week because of, the names or whatever, whereas this fella now, he's come in and he's shown straight from the get-go, he means business, he's set the culture straight away, he's doing everything right in training, he's talking to players, he's giving them an arm around the shoulder if they need it. And I think, as you just said there, you're not performing and you're not putting the work rate in and you're not doing the basics, then he won't, bat an eyelid about, changing personnel and upsetting, ruffling a few feathers, because that's what all the top managers do. When you look around and you look in, all the top players in world football and all the top managers, if you're not doing the business, then, you're susceptible to be getting the chop. So you need to be doing everything you can to keep yourself at the top of your game, week in, week out.
I can only see Varane and the competition being between Varane and Maguire. I think Martinez is probably got, if he fits in, which we all hope he is going to do, I think he's going to be a certain starter. And I think there's going to be a healthy competition between Varane and Maguire for the other centre-back pairing.
Yeah, and I think the only other person I see that's probably a guaranteed starter this season, for me, is Sancho. I think he, like, looking at the way he's been playing in pre-season and the style of Erik Ten Hag likes an attacker, I think Jadon Sancho is probably the one who's a shoe-in to start every week. Now, you can say David De Gea as well because Henderson is gone. I think one big thing about Maguire, and just touching back on Maguire, is when we seen the best Maguires when he had a keeper behind him who could sweep. Because anytime he got done over the top, Dean Henderson swept. Now, and that's not to say Dean Henderson is the solution, but if David De Gea can come off his line a bit earlier and sweep when the ball gets hit over the top and Maguire's not getting pinned into a corner, then look, some of these deficiencies that Harry Maguire does have, maybe eradicated by that simply. But again, if we can keep the ball and just be a team that sustains attacks, like this is the way I look at it. Like Pep Guardiola wants Harry Maguire, Jose Mourinho wants Harry Maguire, like Solskjaer wanted Harry Maguire. Like all good managers, whatever some people say about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, he was a good manager. Jose Mourinho is a good manager. Brendan Rodgers at Leicester is a good manager, and they all like Harry Maguire. So, like, what does a schmuck like me on Twitter say that Harry Maguire isn't a good footballer? He is a good footballer. But I think there's facets to Maguire's game, like any football player. Every football player is a weakness. Not unless you're Messi, Ronaldo. There's not like every footballer on this planet has a deficiency of some sort. So I think look, if we set our system up right, then that deficiency doesn't become a huge problem in the side. It's just about last season under Ralph Rangnick. Number one, they didn't respect him because he's only there for an interim period. And if you look at his body of work as a manager, he hasn't won that much trophies. Let's be honest. You look at the coaching staff he brought in. He brought in Chris Armas, who was a failed MLS manager. Do you know what I mean? Brought him in. The players didn't even know who he was. They thought he was Ted Lasso. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I think with Erik ten Hag, he's a well-respected manager. You have Steve McLaren, who's a well-respected coach, former coach of at the football club as well. He's Van de Gaag in there as well. This is where I think if these managers rate Harry Maguire, then look, we need to give Harry Maguire the backing. I think him getting booed the other day was. I'm not going to get into that because I thought it was just scandalous. To be honest.
It's terrible, man. Absolutely terrible. I felt so sorry for him. Honestly, I know you said you don't want to get into it, but I can't understand if you're a Man United fan, even if the players, and let's be honest, we could have beat every single player last season, including Ronaldo on numerous occasions. He was probably our best player. You know what I mean? But if you're a real Man United supporter, no matter what player puts that shirt on to start in that starting 11 or to come off the bench, he should have your full support while he's on that field and to boo him, especially when he's playing well in the match. For me, it left a real sickly taste, and it's that kind of support is only going to put top world-class players off coming to United. I just can't understand what we was doing.
Yeah, and look, booing your own players, it's never good, and we've seen it happen with Pogba before. We've seen it happen with Fellaini. I remember one time Fellaini came on against Liverpool years ago, and Fellaini got booed at Old Trafford. Do you know what I mean? There's players been booed. No, there's been scenarios where players have been booed by rival clubs, like a former player coming into, let's say, Van Persie back to the Emirates. Van Persie got booed, rightly so. He went to a rival club. I never get the concept of booing your own player. To be fair, there's players who play for the football club right now. I'm not going to name drop them, but I don't think they're good enough to play for the football club. I'm going to be completely and utterly honest. I don't think they're good enough. There's a number of players who I don't think are fit to wear a United shirt. But when I go to Old Trafford, I'll support them. If I'm at home watching the game, I'll want them to do well. I don't get the concept of booing your own players, whether it's Maguire, whether it's formerly, whether it was Pogba, Lingard, Cavani, or Martial, or whoever it was, regardless of who they are and where they come from. You should never boo your own player. And you should support your team for the 90 minutes. And look, you can talk about the game with your friends, or you can go on a podcast, or you can do whatever. But first and foremost, you support the badge and you support the football club, regardless of what your personal preference may be in terms of who plays for your football club. You should always support your team. And I just didn't get it. I just really didn't get it. But I'm gonna leave that where it is, because there's been a lot of theories as to why this player has been booed. I'm not going to get into that. But finally, just before we wrap up, I want to just quick question for both of you. I want just with regards to Ronaldo. What do you think of the situation, and how do you think it's going to end up? I'll come to you firstly. How do you think the situation is going to end?
I think he's going to go. Do I want him to go? If you would have asked me a couple of weeks ago, I would have said no. Looking at the overall picture now, I think it's probably in the club's interest to let him go. on the basis that we sign another number 9, which we mentioned earlier. Always be a legend in my eyes, club legend. But again, an unhappy Ronaldo, it's going to be an unhappy changing room. Looking over the overall picture, I won't be overly disappointed if he does go this season.
Yeah, I do share your sentiment on that one myself. Phil, what's your verdict?
Yeah, obviously, I think everyone knows what I think about Cristiano Ronaldo. He's obviously, an absolute legend, and I love the bones of him. But I actually agree. I think in terms of, I think it's best probably for both parties that he does leave. I think if he does stay and he's not going to be playing regular football, it's going to sort of unsettle people, and obviously going to give Ten Hag a lot of decisions that he might not want to make at certain times. And obviously for him himself, I think he's ambitious. He'll want to be playing at the top level as long and as for as many times as he can. So I think for him, he'll want to be playing Champions League football again next season. So if he can go to another club where that's possible, then fair play to him, and he can carry on doing what he does best. And that's score goals at the top level. So it's been good. We had a great season out of him. I think last season he was probably our best player overall. But I think obviously with this new manager coming in, the style of play, and with everything, if you take everything into consideration, I think it would be the best scenario really if he did move on. Just to sort of because no player is bigger than the club, and I think we're at that position now where we're sort of in a transition.
I think you have to set a culture now, Phil, don't you? I think you kind of have to set a culture.
Well, that's it now. I think we're at that pivotal moment in our future. We've got a brand new manager. We've made some good signings. We want to try and play a certain way. And Cristiano, albeit he's going to score goals and he's a fantastic player to have around the dressing room when he's playing. If he's not playing and he's not quite what he was, and he's not going to quite fit into that system that we're looking to play. Let's move him on. Send him our best wishes. He's always going to be a legend at the club, and he'll probably go on and score goals wherever he ends up going. And we wish him well. But I just think it's the best situation at this moment in time, because I think he's not going to be part of the sort of project moving forward. Although he might end up staying and he could play, but for me, I think it's the right way to leave it with him and just send him on his way.
Phil, as a former striker at United, just to get your opinion on it, because obviously you know a lot more about being a centre forward than I do.
Yeah.
Who would the names what's been thrown out over pre-season about signing? I mean, you've got the likes of Ivan Toney, Tammy Abraham. Let players like that would be worthwhile bringing in, or have you got anyone else in mind where you think it's a bit of a curveball what you think could work?
Yeah. It's a difficult one, to be honest, Lee, because all the strikers that I'd probably want in are sort of signed somewhere else, or they've gone and they're not on the table type of thing. The names you've just mentioned, Tammy Abraham, I thought he's done really well at Roma. Would he come in and be a United style player? I don't know. Obviously couldn't get in regular at Chelsea. Had to go elsewhere. It's a difficult one, mate, to be honest. I think at this moment in time, there's nobody out there that I'm sort of like, he's a perfect fit for what we need, and he would be an ideal sort of, signing. So, yeah, it's a difficult one. Obviously, Ronaldo's, birth, and he will always guarantee you that amount of goals, but for me, I think what we've seen from Martial in pre-season, if he can carry that on, and I don't want to put too much pressure on him and hang my hat on, Martial for the full season, because I don't think he would be able to do that. But at this moment in time, I think he's our best option that we've got. And obviously, you've got other lads around him there who could be, a little bit more flexible at times. Rashford can play up there, Alanga can. Not saying they're the answer, because they're not by any stretch.
Bruno and Donny who can both kind of do that role. So
it's a difficult situation, and I think there's nobody out there at this moment in time for me that's crying out he would be the answer.
Do you think that's why the likes of the Anthony's, the Depays are getting mentioned because obviously we'll rely on our wingers to then, become false nines, or then obviously we need to replace them with quality. Do you think that's why we're getting linked to players like that as opposed to, out forwards?
Out forwards, yeah, exactly. Because I think at this moment in time, if you do look around, that there isn't actually anybody out there that is an out-and-out number 9 that's capable of coming into Man United and being a game changer for me. All the top strikers have either gone to somewhere else or they're under contract at the current club. So, it's a difficult situation at the moment because there's nobody really out there. And I think that's why the likes of these players are getting linked, because there's nobody else basically out there.
That's the main reason I asked you the question, Phil. Is because I'm in the same conundrum as you. I just don't know who we sign. I've been looking and thinking, and I can't think of a number 9 out there at the moment which would fit the system what's available.
And I think if you look at obviously Man City up until signing Haaland, who is that player that would be the one that you would want to get in. They had to do the same with playing false 9s, like De Bruyne has played down the middle at times. Jesus has played there, but I don't think he's a absolute out and out number 9 for me. And they've had to deal with that for the last sort of 18 months until Haaland came in this season. So it is doable, but I don't think we're quite at that level yet where City are. So
they have the midfield to play a false 9.
Exactly, I think they've got the right personnel to adapt to that kind of style, and I think we're not quite there yet. So, Martial's got, a big opportunity for me to sort of make that position his own if he can carry on the form.
Your young man, is it McNeil in the resis at the moment? He's got to be rubbing his hands together. Surely he must be thinking.
Yeah. Well, that's it, because Martial really is the only one who, at this moment in time, if you exclude Ronaldo out of the conversation and he is going to go, let's say, for example, you look at the squad, you've got 2 strikers, and that's Anthony Martial and McNeil, who are out and out, probably, number 9s, and you could probably put Rashford potentially in that bracket because he can play there. But, as a young kid there, you're thinking, right, this could be, my opportunity to state me claim in the team. And obviously Rashford did it when I think it was Martial got injured in the warm-up when he got his first opportunity. And that could be something that could happen. But I just feel as though there's nobody out there at this moment in time that I'm like, yeah, we need to sign him. I think he'd be the solution. So it is a difficult one. And obviously only time will tell whether Martial can, nail that position down, whether he can carry on his form. Does McNeil get an opportunity? If an injury occurs, do we have to put someone else in there and they flourish in that position under this new sort of, culture and style of play? It's going to be interesting, I think, to see how it pans out.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. Again, I think we need to resolve this as soon as possible to see if we can get somebody in, or alternatively, Ten Hag can kind of coach some of these players to play in that position, and they get time on the training ground to learn that position. But look, it's been a great conversation tonight, guys. Thanks everyone for the comments in tonight as well. Helly said anti-rumours are heating up. Yes, I've seen a couple of reports today, so hopefully we get him over the line. He'd be a great sign and someone who I think can help motivate players like Rashford and Sancho to keep continuing their form. But thanks to everyone for tuning in tonight. It's been great to be back. Great talking points. And United are actually playing tomorrow at 11:10 in the morning in Australia. So nice, good time to watch a United game. And it's actually my birthday tomorrow as well. So last year, United got beat by QPR on my birthday last year. They got absolutely hammered. I remember they got beat as 4-1 or something. So hopefully this year, United don't let me down. Please God, I'm turning 26. So look, I'm still in my prime, nice young prime age. United need to, keep me in a good mood tomorrow. But yeah, look, thanks for everyone for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button. Also subscribe. We do have a lot of podcasts coming up, and we have a lot of new faces here on Talk the Devils as well. So, we are keeping things fresh. We're keeping things, keeping things good here, and the content is just going to ramp up on this channel in these next couple of months. So do tune in, do show your support for the lads as well. And next Friday on the podcast, we've something a bit different coming for you as well. So do make sure you tune in for that as well. But thanks very much everyone for watching. I hope you all have a good weekend, and most importantly, up the Reds. See you next week, guys.